What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, and y'all know what time it is. Every Monday, 11 a.m. Central Time, right here on our YouTube channel on the Bluebloods, we release our official Bluebloods top 10 for week 2 this week, man. We had an amazing week. We had some great upsets. If you're looking for some recaps, we had an instant reaction episode drop on Sunday, and we also recapped the Oregon-Ohio State upset. We made that its own episode that dropped Saturday afternoon. So just go back into some previous episodes, find that and if you can't find it, it will be on our week 2 college football content playlist. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, you won't find a better college football channel out there, especially an independent one, because we do it big right here on the Blue Blood. But let's get right into it. Let's waste no time as we got number 10 here. And we got the Penn State Nittany Lions. They were number 9 last week. They dropped a spot back, mostly due to one team jumping them due to another huge top 10 win for them. We'll get there in a second. But for me, Penn State did fine this week. A 44-13 win over Ball State. Really can't take too much from it just because it was Ball State, but they handled business. No upset in Happy Valley, and they're going into a very, very important week. They have the Auburn Tigers, which I believe are number 22 in the AP poll, coming into town this upcoming week. It's going to be a whiteout. It's going to be College game day. If they win that game, they're gonna jump in these rankings even more. If they lose, then it's back to the drawing board. But I still think they're a very interesting team in the Big Ten, especially with some of the struggles that we saw Ohio State have. But for me, Sean Clifford's playing just fine. I mean, the running game's there with Noah Cain, but Jahan Dotson's the real deal wide receiver, and the defense looks legit. If that defense can hold their own in any game, it gives Penn State such an edge because that defense is so opportunistic, and it keeps them in the game. Even as Sean Clifford, takes some time to warm up into the moment each week, the offense isn't ever going to be spectacular or go put up 50 points in a game, but what it's going to be is consistent. They're going to limit turnovers, and they're going to run the clock, control the ball, and the defense is going to do their job. It's a perfect recipe for success, and Penn State is going to be such an interesting team going into Big Ten play. But right now they are number 10 on my list. Number 9, I have Texas A&M. Had them dropping a few spots due to some teams moving up ahead of them. And also A&M just really didn't have a great week. Only a 10-7 win over Colorado. They lose potentially Haynes King for the season. I have not heard an update on the injury. I'm sure that'll be coming out as this episode's released on Monday. So we'll find out more, but there's been some rumors he could be out for an extended period of time. What can Zach Calzada do at the quarterback spot? That's a huge question. Right now, this team's going to have to rely on Isaiah Spiller, Anais Smith, Jalen Weidemeyer, and that amazing defense they have on the other side of the ball, headlined by DeMarvin Leal at defensive tackle, Jalen Jones on the outside, all those dogs on the defensive side of the ball. But the 10-7 win, I give them a lot of credit for pulling that game out. And it was a neutral site game in Mile High, so really it was a home game for Colorado, and they were in the elevation. They were away from home. They lose their starting quarterback, and they still found a way to win, even though Colorado had all the momentum in the world. So for me, A&M is definitely still a top 10 team, but I am very concerned moving forward about their offense without Haynes King. I feel like Calzada did his thing, but for me, I feel like their ceiling is a little bit lower with Calzada and starting quarterback rather than King. Is going to come down to, can they run the ball, and can they trust Calzada to not turn the ball over? Those are going to be the two things for the offense. I think the defense will be fine. But for right now, I'm going to stick A&M at 9. At 8, Ohio State. Now, I know some people had them dropping out of the top 10. I'm not that low on them. I don't think they should drop out of the top 10 because I think what happened, in my opinion, this is just my rankings. I thought Oregon was extremely overlooked by the national media. Oregon, to me, was in my preseason top 10. I thought that was a valid loss. I don't think Oregon's a bad team. And I thought Oregon had a shot until they lost Thibodeau. We'll get to them in a little bit. Ohio State's offense is fine, guys. Their running game could be a bit more efficient. Stroud needed to play better down the stretch, but they're going to be able to put up 30-plus points every single game, especially in the big ones, you know. But for me, that run defense is atrocious. And I had someone comment on our week 2 instant reaction video. It's going to be a problem in the Big Ten. When you look at, their top 3 or 4 competitors, Iowa with Goodson, running is going to run the ball down your throat, and he is a solid running back. You saw Minnesota run the ball down their throat with Mo Ibrahim. You look at Wisconsin, always a run-first team. You look at Penn State, Noah Cain is no joke. And then the other one, Michigan has dominated on the ground their first 2 weeks and just got done running through a very talented Washington defense. So if they don't fix their run game, Ohio State absolutely could lose another game. And I don't think there is a shoe-in for the Big Ten, as some people think. They will be competitive. Ryan Day, this is going to be his defining moment thus far in his career. Can he turn the ship around? Can he bounce back from a loss to Oregon this weekend? It was a 35-28 upset in Columbus at 11 a.m. You've got to do better. The offense put up over 600 yards of total offense, but the defense could not stop C.J. Verdell even in the slightest. So for me right now, I have Ohio State at 8, and I think this is just kind of temporary. It's really going to depend on how they look in the next few weeks. And if like a team like Penn State beats an Auburn and goes on a little stretch, I can absolutely see them jumping Ohio State. A&M has some very key games coming up, so Ohio State's at 8 temporarily here. Now for 7, I know my Clemson listeners are going to be upset with me. They dropped from 5. And so why they dropped from 5 is because I think there were some teams that had more defining wins than they've had thus far, and they won those defining games while Clemson slipped up in the biggest moment when Georgia was already shorthanded. I think I kind of underrated their loss last week. I was like, man, I just can't drop them too far. I think there were a few teams that proved their worth above and beyond what Clemson has thus far. They did fine this weekend. It was a 49-3 bludgeoning of South Carolina State, one of the top schools in the MEAC. It wasn't really a competition. They got some big games on the horizon that I think will be more of a test of, was that Georgia game an anomaly, and or was Georgia just very, very good? And we're going to find out what they have to do with the running game. The offensive line has to be better. And for me, those are going to be the two things. Can Dabo Swinney and Tony Elliott find a way to get that offense clicking again? And can Clemson run their way through the ACC to get back into that, one of those top 4 spots? There's some teams in front of them that play each other, so it's not out of the question. But right now, Clemson and Ohio State find themselves in a very, very unique situation, which I broke down in our instant reaction. And I'll break it down when we get to the end of this list. The college football playoff race has become exponentially complicated with these two teams having losses this early in the season. Now, at 6, this will be controversial. I have Cincinnati. They had a slow start in the first half. It was tied at halftime 7-7, I believe, with Murray State, who's one of the favorites for the OVC at the FCS level. Blew them out in the second half, 42-7. They looked absolutely outstanding. And let me just say this, because I had a conversation with a few of our listeners who I rely on to kind of give me feedback on the show, and they were like, "You got to punish Cincinnati. They started out slow. Did you see what they did?" Listen, they had a slow start, but you know what they didn't do? They didn't lose, and they woke up. Iowa State only beat UNI by what, 7, I believe, 6, something like that. Washington gets upset by Montana. Jacksonville State beats Florida State. And when you look at some of these other teams, a lot of people had slow starts early in the season. So if you're going to be forgiving of a Georgia, of a Oklahoma against Tulane, of an Oregon when they struggle with Fresno State, if we can forgive those teams, why are we so not quick to forgive Cincinnati? They're going to have a huge test this week when they face Indiana. And I know Indiana got blown out by Iowa, but they haven't even appeared on the list yet. So that's how good that team is. That loss is looking better and better as Iowa gets into their season. Cincinnati is legit to me. I don't think this is your average group of 5 team, and we have to stop. That's my whole thing on this podcast is let's stop hating on the group of 5 for some reason. Yes, there's some group of 5 teams that can't compete. Cincinnati competed with Georgia last year. And we're going to find out exactly what Cincinnati is when they face Notre Dame and Indiana in the next 2 weeks of the season. Right now, Cincinnati has been 6 in every single one of my rankings. But the key difference between them and Ohio State and them and Clemson is they haven't lost, and they haven't proven to me they should be any lower in my rankings. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, just like I'm giving Clemson and Ohio State the benefit of the doubt over A&M and Penn State. So if you're going to afford those same things to other schools who struggle early, do it to Cincinnati. They get a huge 42-7 win, and their first big Power 5 test comes up this weekend. So let's hold judgment on that. And at 5, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes. They were my number 10 team last week. I was holding out judgment on them, but I thought they earned a spot with a dominating win over Indiana. They put on a show again this weekend, guys. They were on our instant reactions. If you want a full game breakdown, this is just our top 10. So I'm not going into all the stats and breaking these games down in depth. But Iowa had a huge win this weekend, 27-17 over Iowa State. That was their 6th straight Cy-Hawk rivalry game win, and they put on a show. The offense, could have been better, and I said that. And a bunch of Iowa fans, we went back and forth in the comments. The offense should be there, but for me, the defense has proven to be carrying this team. Kirk Ferentz has done an excellent job on the offensive line and the defense, and those are the 2 key things to pull them through this Big Ten schedule. They are the highest-ranked Big Ten team on my list, and right now, I don't think you can tell me with how Ohio State looks on defense that Iowa can't challenge them for the Big Ten this year. They look legit. The defense is so opportunistic. They have forced, I believe it's 7 turnovers in their first 2 games, and it has led them to huge wins. They've had multiple defensive touchdowns. This is a defensive identity team, and it's amazing to see them carry this thus far because a lot of people think college football has shifted to an offensive mindset. And Iowa has proven you can win with defense, and they keep doing it time and time again. They control the clock with the run game. Spencer Petras does not turn the ball over, and that team just consistently and efficiently churns out wins. Iowa has absolutely earned a top 5 ranking. One of the only, I believe they're either the only team. I believe they're the only team with 2 ranked wins, 2 top 20 wins in the first 2 weeks, and they've done them both in dominant fashion. Iowa completely deserves this number 5 ranking. And so for me, I think they've shown they're a top 5 team. And right now, I think you can make an argument that they could compete with Ohio State, especially with that run game and that defense right now. And at 4, huge jump, and I think it's justified. Oregon looked legit this weekend finally. Listen, I've talked all season about how I thought Oregon was legit, and I jumped off the bandwagon when I heard Thibodeau and Flo were both out, 2 5-star athletes, 2 of the best defensive players on that team, and I kind of wasn't sold on Anthony Brown. All my questions were answered. That D-line made plays when they needed to down the stretch. The offense was unstoppable with C.J. Verdell, who has solidified himself as one of the best running backs in the country, even though his MVP 2019 performance in the Pac-12 championship should have already done that. He proved that Oregon has legit athletes to compete with some of the best teams in the country. And this narrative that, it's the Pac-12 and they don't have this, they don't have that. Oregon is an absolute factor out there on the West Coast. Mario Cristobal has done an outstanding job building this team up. They had a top 5 recruiting class last year. They're going to probably have one this year. He is recruiting at an all-time level for the Ducks. And Anthony Brown, man, shout out to him. I doubted him so much, but he proved me wrong. He was a playmaker last weekend. He didn't do anything over the top, but he didn't turn the ball over, played within the offense, and absolutely led the Ducks to this win. When they get Thibodeau and Flo back, the Ducks are going to be a problem. And for me, looking at especially how USC looked, if they can get past UCLA the last week, I honestly think this Oregon team walks to the playoffs. I mean, this team is probably going to be 12-0 if I had to say so right now. If they could just avoid that one loss they always seem to have to a team that is overmatched, Oregon's legit. They absolutely have, in my opinion, they have the best win of the season. I know Georgia beat Clemson was amazing, but for me, the way Oregon did it, where they ran the ball down their throat, they were missing their two of their best players. I think Oregon had the win of the season thus far. As on the road, 8 a.m. their time. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. Oregon's legit. Mario Cristobal, props to you for this win, and Oregon absolutely deserves that number 4 spot. And I think everyone kind of knows who 1 through 3 are. Oklahoma, kind of number 3 by default. I thought about putting Oregon above them, but, just like I said with Cincinnati, I'm not putting too much stock in that Tulane struggle win. They were kind of dominating them and just looked like they took their foot off the pedal. 76-0 this week over Western Carolina. I know it's just Western Carolina, but they took all the frustration out and more on them. And I think right now with how Iowa State looks, Texas getting run through by Arkansas, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to touch them in the Big 12 this year. Kansas State smashed Stanford, but then struggled with an FCS school this week. TCU might be there. But right now, I just think Oklahoma has one of the easier roads to the college football playoff. And I think right now, Spencer Rattler is going to have so many games, starting with Nebraska this week, in which this offense is going to start getting in rhythm like it did last year. I think the defense is better than it was last year. I think Oklahoma is right there, and they're probably going to be a top 2 seed because the 2 teams in front of them are going to have to play. So right now, Oklahoma's fine. Lincoln Riley's cruising. As long as they can avoid that dreaded Kansas State upset in mid-October. They have Texas, Kansas State, TCU back-to-back-to-back. They have to win those games. They can avoid the upset there. I don't think anyone's seeing them in the Big 12. And now, number 2, Georgia, 56-7 slaughter of UAB with a backup quarterback in Stetson Bennett, who set all kind of passing records with 5 passing touchdowns in the first half. Not much to take away here. Georgia's looking ahead to SEC play. They're going to roll anyone who's pretty much in their way. They have a few tough games. I think Missouri and Kentucky are going to be pretty tough in the East. And then, of course, that Florida game is going to be kind of a toss-up depending on what that quarterback situation looks like. Anthony Richardson, man, they call him AR-15, looks like Cam Newton 2.0. He looks legit. So look out for Georgia in the East. And also, those 3 games are going to determine a lot. But right now, it looks like a collision path with Alabama in the SEC championship. So Georgia's number 2, unless proven otherwise, and UAB didn't even give them a run for their money. And it's clear Alabama's number 1. 48-14 beat down on Mercer this weekend, but they have an interesting matchup next weekend. They're number 1 till proven otherwise, because right now I think they're the best team in the country by a large margin. I think they'd probably be a favorite over every other team in the country by at least, I would say, 8 points. And I don't even think it would be close. I would probably take the 8 points for Alabama right now. That's how good that team looks. They got an interesting test this weekend that we're going to find out a lot. They go down to the Swamp at Florida to face the Gators, and I would love to see Richardson get a lot of time in that game. Let's see what he's made of. All the hype is behind him. Dan Mullen's got nothing to lose. Let's go for the win there. If Alabama blows out Florida, I don't know if there's anyone on their schedule that can see them. I think Ole Miss will be an interesting game because Lane Kiffin has that team playing lights out. And outside of that, I mean, maybe Arkansas after the way it looked against Texas. But right now, Alabama is the consensus team, number 1 team in the country for me. I just think that team is so complete. They have playmakers at every spot. They have a great offensive line. They got great pass rushers. They're disciplined. They don't make mistakes, and they have the best coach in the country in Nick Saban. So right now, Alabama easily number 1 on my list. But guys, listen, stop right here. Comment below your top 10. I want to see what y'all got. I'll definitely respond to y'all if y'all have some interesting picks. Love to get with it in the comments with y'all. But guys, hit that subscribe button right now, man. Join the Blue Bloods. We are so close to 1,000 subs, so I can't thank y'all enough for the support. But hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it with your friends, families, colleagues, whatever you want to do, man. Just get it. Help us promote this video. Definitely appreciate y'all. But I will be back this week with some more game previews. Check out our game recaps, instant reactions from last week while you're here. And guys, I will see y'all next week, later this week. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.